Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, if you will please call the read the announcement and call the roll.
December 11, 2018. Please be advised this meeting is being taped for audio and video broadcast. The meeting will also be closed captioned. It's important that everyone speak clearly into the microphones and only one person speak at a time. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Corsello.
Here.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Mr. Stern.
Here.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Ioannidis.
Here.
Mr. Dumas.
Here.
Mr. Sims. Mr. Kides.
Here.
Ms. Siegelbaum.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Sironides.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
14 present, you have a quorum.
14 present, we have a quorum. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting. Please note that Mr. Sims came. We have 15. Acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 27th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Igneri moves the minutes. Do I have any corrections, deletions, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. Public participation. Ms. King.
Dick Brescia.
Good evening. I'm Dick Brescia, the chairman of the Parking Authority. I'm not speaking for the Parking Authority tonight. I'm speaking for Dick Brescia. Somebody felt that I had too much free time because the Parking Authority wasn't taking enough of it. So someone in City Hall asked me to sit in on an interview, a joint interview for the position of the new economic development, community development person. Probably because they knew that I had done a lot of interviewing in the past on my own and my other life. And every now and then made a good decision, but made a lot of them. At any rate, we did sit down and talk to three very capable candidates. And Jessica Casey was I guess the second person we talked to. And everybody in the room was extremely impressed with her. I was concerned in the beginning after the mayor had suggested the redevelopment, the reorganization, I should say, and obviously the council approved that. I thought that was a good decision. My concern was, would we get the right person to come in to fill this very important role? And for what it's worth, I think that you have the right person. And Jessica will do an outstanding job here. She's one of the best interviews that I've ever had in my career, and she really was most impressive. And I think you'll find that as we go through the next several months as she performs in an outstanding way.
Thank you, Mr. Brescia.
John Romano.
John Romano from 179 East Rocks Road, Norwalk, and I'm here representing the Harbor Commission and as it looks, the Shellfish Commission as well. I've been getting a bunch of texts. A lot of members wanted to be here, but they were either predisposed, in the hospital getting a gallbladder out, had late interviews. Dick did some, I guess, but John Pinto had interviews at the university for with some students, and so I'm here. I'm here to speak on the extension of the contract with Sue Prosy. The Harbor Commission and Shellfish Commission, as you all know, are charged with protecting the harbor and its resources, particularly the shellfish. We are also charged with following the state and Common Council approved harbor management plan. Having said this, and also reading Mrs. Prosey's contract, where we have an issue, now it's quite apparent why we've been ignored, not taken into consideration, not consulted with by her, because it's not in her contract that she should. Her interaction is to look out for the public good, which is fine. Her interaction is, as we saw what she's done for the numerous hours she's put in, is interacted with city agencies and some state agencies, but at the end of the day, it's harbor and shellfish that are looking out for all of your interests and the city's interests. And they're all spelled out in the harbor management plan, which we must adhere to. Now, I like Lisa Burns, and Lisa likes her, so I guess she's serving a purpose, which is good. The interaction that's happening within the city agencies in the state, some of that's good. Shellfish and harbor have phenomenal relationships with both, because we continually work with them, as well as DEEP. We're very well respected. The Yankee Doodle Bridge plans and the remediation that's being done there were actually changed because of numerous meetings with us, and they're lessening the impact on the harbor because of that. So we didn't need an advocate in that regard, but I'm sure the city does in many respects. What we did do several years ago, and Harry would remember it, we sent a letter looking for the city to hire expertise to help guide us. I'm a contractor. Pinto's a doctor, studies medicine and different things and comes up with compounds. We have other people that are scientists, engineers, many talents, but none of us are capable of really digging into the areas that we have to dig into, especially the contamination that we're going to be dealing with. We need somebody that's going to advocate for us, which is the city, to make sure the state puts safeguards in place. One of the things with the newly instituted at Harry's insistence, and we were going to do it regardless, putting together the Mayor's Water Quality Committee. Well, the Water Quality Committee needs support, needs resources. If we're going to watch what goes on, and for the betterment of the city and its waters, the fish, shellfish in particular, because we've got a lot of PCBs that are buried out there, and if the shellfish gets just a little bite of it, our beds get closed down forever. Now, all the state has told us is that they're going to put some safeguards into place, has to do with water temperature and working within certain tides, but there's no guarantees and there's no monitoring whatsoever that's going to be done. And we want to see that happen too. So I guess I'm asking for you guys to table her moving forward and bring it back to committee, bring us in, let us tell you what our expectations are. And I have some notes that were sent to me as far as what we'd like to see get boiled into any agreement is the city needs, okay, how does Ms. Prosey, determine the city's needs and interests when she's interacting with DOT and Eversource? How does Ms. Prosey intend to treat the recommendations of the Harbor and the Shellfish Commissions? What does she intend to do to help the Harbor and Shellfish Commissions overall? Her contract should be renewed, but not until these questions are satisfactorily answered, because we need that interaction. The city of Norwalk needs it. You all need it, because we're the safeguard and the front line of all this that's going to happen. We hire consultants continuously for little things, every year, every month, every week. And yet this is the largest project in the history of the city of Norwalk, and we have an ombudsman, but we don't really have consultants that will help us in the decisions and put in place safeguards that are so sorely needed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. There are no other persons signed up to address the council. We have no resignations or appointments from the mayor's office on the agenda. So now time for mayor's remarks.
Two reminders relative to upcoming presentations from the high schools. If you haven't attended in the past, I would highly recommend that you consider attending the Poinsettia concert at the Brian McMahon High School next Tuesday, December 18th at 7:30, and the Norwalk High School Candlelight concert next Wednesday, December 19th at 7:30. They are both truly amazing performances, and I think you'll enjoy them. You'll be amazed at the talent that we have in our local high schools. The dancing, the singing, the choreography, the instrumentals, the orchestra. It's just an amazing, amazing event, both of them. So I would encourage you to attend if you are able. Just this evening, I attended at St. Anne's Club, Wreaths Across America. It's an organization that provides wreaths for the graves of veterans all across the country. So far, they have laid 1.8 million wreaths on graves going up and down the East Coast, all over the country. There was a caravan, if you might have gotten stuck in traffic a few moments ago, a caravan that started off in Maine and will be going this evening into New Jersey, and then from there they'll be going to Arlington National Cemetery. That's just one leg of Wreaths Across America. And I want to thank St. Anne's Club. They hosted Wreaths Across America this evening. The volunteers of St. Anne's Club fixed an amazing meal and donated $1,000 to the cause. And as the caravan was leaving, everybody got a Klondike bar. So, and it was really quite an amazing event. Thank you to Wreaths Across America for honoring our veterans, the people who served in our military, men and women who served in our military, that allow us the freedoms that we have today so that we can celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah and all the other wonderful holidays that we so much enjoy in this country. I would like to thank Greg Burnett and Mr. Dumas and Beth Siegelbaum for joining me. Mr. Burnett arranged for the ringing of the bell at Stop and Shop on Main Avenue for the Salvation Army, another organization when we have a problem in the city, a fire where people are displaced, where people need food. They are right there helping out. They bring coffee to the first responders while they're working through the night. So thank you, Mr. Burnett. Thank you, Mr. Dumas, and thank you, Ms. Siegelbaum, for being there. Last but not least, two of our council members will be leaving us this evening to move on to what different positions. Mr. Sims has served the council now for 10 years? 8?
Just short. No, it's almost 10.
Almost 10 years. Yeah, it'll be 9 years because he's leaving now. He will be representing the city of Norwalk in the 140th District. We wish him well as he works to bring in funds for the city so that we can do the things that we need to do. And also, Mr. Stern will be leaving. He has just been elected as probate judge for the Wilton-Norwalk District. We wish him well. We know you'll be compassionate in your performance and looking out for the families during their difficult times. So that is all I have. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to first echo your comments about Mr. Sims and Mr. Stern. Thank them for their hard work on the council. We appreciate all you've done, and I personally, and I know others, have enjoyed working with both of you. Wish you well in the future. So moving on to my first real motion, action is to cancel the meeting on December 25th and wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and hope everybody has a great holiday season. Excuse me?
I'm glad I voted for you.
There we go. Now moving on to appointments, we have appointment of Lori Toronto to the Ethics Board. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hampton.
I'd like to move Lori Toronto to the Ethics Board. She served for I think, almost 10 years, if not longer, on the redevelopment agency. She did a fabulous job. She's no longer concerned when she left that position. She was looking for something else to join into.
Thank you. Any other comment? Mr. Cadiz?
Yeah, I'll echo Mr. Hempstead's comments. She spent many years on the redevelopment agency. She did a fantastic job there, and I'm sure she'll do a fantastic job on the ethics board.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Is she here?
No, she's on vacation.
Okay. All right, moving on to consent calendar. We can start a new practice now, going forward. All the items we discussed in the council are discussed at committee meetings beforehand, but not everybody gets a chance to go to those. So what I'd like to do going forward is to highlight some item that would otherwise be on consent, be it big or small, just so people attending the meeting or watching it on TV get a sort of a sense of some of the things we're working on. So we're going to take a couple items off tonight, mostly actually dealing with fees, and hopefully we keep doing this in the future. And with that, I'll turn to the consent calendar. Reading it tonight will be Mr. Sirenides. And just a reminder, if your item is on...
No, it's Mr. Stern.
Oh, it's Stern, all right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to take it away from you on your last day.
Thank you.
And he was well prepared. He studied hard for this.
All right, you told me that last night, too. So if your item's on the calendar as approved, as part of the consent calendar, it is approved, and there'll be no further discussion, and you don't need to pay more attention. All right, Mr. Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. It's my honor to be reading the consent calendar on my last Common Council meeting. If I may, I just want to say what a privilege it's been to serve on this council, and what a pleasure it's been serving with all of its members. Over the last year, I've learned so much about my country, about my city, and about myself from every single person up here. So I just would like to thank you for that. I'm forever grateful, and everyone here has earned my respect and affection, and I will miss this time that we've spent together. So with that, I will read the consent calendar. Item 6A1, the authorization for discussion, Nancy Roth Natal versus City of Norwalk. Item 7B2A, authorize the mayor, Harry Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept grant funds from the state of Connecticut for the lead poisoning prevention program for the period November 5th, 2018 through September 29th, 2019. Item 7B2B, authorize Mayor Harry Rilling to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary to implement the lead poisoning prevention program for the period November 5th, 2018 through September 29th, 2019. Item 7B3A, authorize the Mayor Harry Rilling to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, and amendments necessary to request and accept grant funds under the Office of Policy and Management 2019 JAG Local Violent Crime Prevention Program in the amount of $12,988.64. Item 7B3B, authorize the Police Chief, Thomas Kowalik, to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, and amendments thereto as may be necessary to implement all programs through the State of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management 2019 JAG Local Violent Crime Prevention Program pursuant to such grant funding. Item 7C1, approve the 4th Taxing District property extensions through September 30th, 2018 as per the list dated October 24th, 2018. Item 7C2, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a second amendment with the Norwalk Transit District for design plans by Stantec Inc. for State Project 102-350 Norwalk River Valley Trail Phase 2 for an amount not to exceed $9,800. Scope of services dated November 14th, 2018 attached. Account number is noted. Item 7C, that continues. Budget availability and written authorization of Director of Public Works. Am I correct?
No, you were reading part of 3.
Reading, excuse me. Pardon me. Item 7C4, authorize the Mayor, Harry Rilling, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and Freeman Companies for professional engineering services for the inspection and evaluation of city-owned bridges 20 feet or less in length for a sum not to exceed $251,200. The account numbers are noted. Item 7C5, Acknowledge the receipt of the application for the abandonment discontinuance of a portion of Stevens Street beginning at the easterly boundary of the city property located at 340 West Avenue, tax lot 18150, and heading west to the westerly boundary of the city property located at 350 West Avenue, tax lot 18390, as depicted on a map prepared by Ryan and Faulds Land Surveyors, a Redness and Mead Company, entitled, quote, Property Survey Abandonment Map of a Portion of Stevens Street, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated October 4th, 2018, at a scale of 1 inch to 1 inch is 20 feet, on file in the Department of Public Works, indicating said portion of Stevens Street to be abandoned and incorporated into the existing city properties located at 340 West Avenue and 350 West Avenue. Item 7C6, schedule a public hearing of necessity for the abandonment discontinuance of a portion of Stevens Street beginning at the easterly boundary of the city property located at 340 West Avenue, tax lot 18150, and heading west to the westerly boundary of the city property located at 350 West Avenue, tax lot 18390, as depicted on a map prepared by Ryan and Faulds Land Surveyors, a Redness and Mead Company, entitled, quote, Property Survey Abandonment Map of a Portion of Stevens Street, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated October 4th, 2018, at a scale of 1 inch to 20 feet, on file in the Department of Public Works, indicating said portion of Stevens Street to be abandoned and incorporated into the existing city property located at 340 West Avenue and 350 West Avenue. The public hearing of necessity shall be conducted in order to hear all parties interested in commenting on the necessity of the proposed abandonment and to take such action on said application for abandonment that the committee may deem advisable. The public hearing is scheduled for the January 2019 Public Works Committee meeting, date to be determined and advertised, at 7 p.m. in room 225, second floor, Norwalk City Hall, 125 East Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut. Item 7C7, refer the abandonment discontinuance of a portion of Stevens Street beginning at the easterly boundary of the city property located at 340 West Avenue, tax lot 18150, and heading west to the westerly boundary of the city property located at 350 West Avenue, tax lot 18390, as depicted on a map prepared by Ryan and Faulds Land Surveyors, a Redness and Mead Company, entitled, quote, Property Survey Abandonment Map of a Portion of Stevens Street, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated October 4th, 2018, at a scale of 1 inch to 20 feet, on file in the Department of Public Works, indicating said portion of Stevens Street to be abandoned and incorporated into the existing city properties located at 340 West Avenue and 350 West Avenue to the Planning Commission for a CGS 824 review. Item 7C8, yes, authorize the Mayor, Harry Relling, to execute an amendment to the VHB contract to provide plant and field testing, coring, asset management, resurvey, and administrative reporting for project PM 2018-1 Pavement Management Program for a sum not to exceed $60,000. Accounts noted. Item 7C9, authorize the Mayor, Harry Relling, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and AECOM for on-call engineering and infrastructure inspections on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $20,000. Item 7C10, accounts noted. Item 7C10, authorize the Mayor, Harry Relling, to execute an agreement with Teague and Bond for Lockwood Matthews Mansion water main replacement and fire service in accordance with the proposal dated November 21, 2018, in amount not to exceed $15,500. Account numbers noted. Item 7C11, authorize the Mayor, Harry Relling, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and Construction Solutions Group, LLC, for owner's representative services related to the functional replacement of the Maritime Aquarium project in an amount not to exceed $135,000, 100% state-funded per administrative settlement agreement. Item 7E1A, authorize the Mayor, Harry Relling, to execute an agreement with a Preferred Construction, LLC, for Phase 1 of the Ben Franklin Center roof replacement project for a total not to exceed $186,550. Funds are available from the two accounts that are noted. Item 7E1B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $18,655. And thankfully, that is the end of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. I bet you're going to miss that one.
Well done.
All
I'd
in
like to comment that he sounded very much like a judge.
All in favor of the consent calendar as read? Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Sachinelli, item 7A1. I'm sorry, Mr. Corsello. That's you.
Yes, item 7A1, I'm going to move that the 2019-2020 Department of Recreation and Parks facility usage and park fees be approved. The staff at Parks and Rec reviewed the fees.
Mike.
Into the mic.
Reviewed the fees, found some to be outdated, some not to be in keeping with the market. We scheduled a public hearing, and we received public input on the proposed fee increases. We then had a meeting, we discussed it, and we came up with the schedule you have before you tonight. Essentially, it's very modest increases for in-town residents for certain facilities, and a few substantial increases for non-residents for usage of our facilities. And what you should understand is that these fee increases don't reflect that our facilities and our parks are in bad condition, but actually in very good condition. As you know, when demand for use is up, you can afford to raise rates. These rates keep it accessible, especially to Norwalk residents, and still will keep the parks thriving and busy, and I urge you all to approve it.
Discussion? Mr. Kides.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, to Mr. Corsello's point, our parks are in excellent condition. I think the best I've ever seen them, and you know, all the credit goes to parks employees and the leadership of Ken Hughes. And my thoughts with the park fees this year were that with all these improvements, where we do get a lot of complaints, and I do personally as the representative of the district, which the beach is in and so forth, and we get a lot of complaints about non-residents overcrowding. So not to say that we're trying to discourage non-residents, but I think now they're going to have to pay a higher premium for the benefit of using our parks. So I'm very pleased we were able to keep the resident fees low and bump up the non-residents. So I'm happy to see this outcome.
Further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now, Mr. Sachinelli, 7B1.
Thank you. 7B1, approve the Health Department fee schedule as set by the Director of Health with the concurrence of the Board of Health at their November 28th, 2018 meeting. I asked that there be representatives from the Health Department here to speak on this, just to discuss some of the motivating factors behind the update here, and then to field any questions. With that.
Sure, thank you, Nick. So good evening, Tom Closter, who's the Director of Environmental Services. We're here to provide you with more information about our proposed fees and the upcoming changes to our food inspections next year. The Health Department and the Board of Health set our environmental fees based on the cost of providing the service, and we review and adjust our fees annually. Starting in January of 2019, we are transitioning to the FDA's Model Food Code. The Connecticut General Assembly passed a bill that will make this Connecticut's food code. There will be many changes, which include new regulations, new inspection forms, the elimination of a number score on the inspections, new violation types, and a reclassification of our restaurants. So you will see that our fees are based on the class of the food establishment. Tom has run the numbers, and we anticipate that many will be moving down a class starting in 2019. So many of our full-service restaurants that are currently Class 4s will now be at Class 3. So 257 of those Class 4 establishments will now be a Class 3 with the new code. So our overall numbers for Class 4 go down from 277 to 20. And that continues on with the other classes. More than half of the Class 3s are now moving to Class 2s. So we have adjusted the fees to reflect this new classification in anticipation of spending more time in the facilities to conduct these different types of inspections. So if you look that next year, overall, some of these we're proposing increases, but if the new fees are implemented, over half of our establishments will actually see a decrease in their fee.
Thank you. I'd like to move the item and request that we accept the fees as listed. Any questions?
Mr. Sacchinelli, move the item. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Igneri, item 7C3.
I'd like to move the motion to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to extend the existing agreement with Susan Prosy Johnson dated December 15, 2017, for the provision of consultant services for the Walk Bridge Program Management for a period of 1 year through December 14, 2019, with a 2-year renewal subject to budget availability and written authorization of the Director of Public Works. I move that, and I'd like to say that I agree with our speaker tonight. We should hire her. We should extend her, renew her contract. I do agree that we should hire her, but I think we should hire her now so that her contract doesn't expire in a few days. She has worked tirelessly over the last few years, or the last year, to help us get a better handle on the construction of the Walk Bridge and to work with other city agencies. In one meeting, I commented that the communication between the Harbor Commission and the council was not as the best, and she took it upon herself to extend all invitations to any of the meetings we were having with CDOT, Connecticut Department of Transportation. And I think that's the type of work we've gotten over the last year. She's tirelessly worked to keep the mayor and his staff informed and to work with the DPW staff, Lisa Burns, and others. So we've made headway. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think we should extend this contract.
Thank you, Mr. Igneri. Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead.
In our, I personally think it should go back to committee because there's some deficiencies.
Want to pull the mic down a little bit?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I think there's some deficiencies in the contract, which were kind of discussed at somewhat Public Works Committee, because one of the smallest section in here is to be services to be performed. We talked about in committee about there is no requirement for periodic reports. We thought the council was going to get like a quarterly report or something, but when you read the direction in here, there is no requirements for reports. It says Mrs. Johnson will be available to meet with the designated officer, employees, commissions, and officials of the city and the public from time to time as may be appropriate, and with other entities as directed by the city. With regard to services performed hereafter, my question is, who is the city per se directing her to meet with harbor commissions if they're not being met with, to meet with? I just don't know what it says, the city. There's a couple of spots in there where it says the city, directions from the city. Who is the city in this? Can Bernie or somebody answer this? Contract?
Ms. Prosy, would you?
Ms. Prosy's here.
Well, she reports to the,
She reports to
and she's walking up. I'll just point out that
DPW.
she
I don't know if
reports
she can answer it. She didn't design
One
the
at a
contract.
time.
But the contract was reviewed by the law department, so she could come up, and I don't, I think it may not be a bad idea to have Lisa come up as well, her supervisor in the DPW department. She reports to DPW, And so to the extent that she reports to any city agencies, committees of the council, et cetera, she would take her direction from her supervisor in the DPW department.
That's not what this says.
What it says city.
Yep, it says like,
Ms. King and Ms. Burns, would you come up?
It's chief of staff.
Yeah. So
Ms. Burns? would you
just
come
to
up too?
clarify, the contract states that Ms. Prosy reports to me. She does report to me. We meet at least on a weekly basis regularly. We go over all of the constituent meetings that are coming up, all of the meetings with the Department of Transportation, with the various city departments. We respond to virtually every request that comes in for an update from Ms. Prosy, and we would be happy to ensure that she gives a quarterly update to the council or to any committee of the council that would be interested in hearing it. One of the reasons that she is so valuable to us is because of the amount of information that is coming into the various city departments regarding this project and the number of meetings that are taking place that need a city representative at them. Ms. Prosy has been at, how many meetings have you been to, Sue?
Over 160, if I count meetings with you, it's 230, and then more.
So it's an invaluable resource to the city to make sure that we know what is happening at all of these various meetings that are taking place across the city and across the state.
And Ms. King meets with Ms. Prosy on a weekly basis to go over what's taken place during the previous week or what's coming up for the following week.
In addition, my cubby is located in DPW, so I have ongoing access with DPW. I also have access, and the rest of the city staff is very gracious in meeting with me or coordinating with me, and I make sure that they all get appropriate information. If somebody's not getting information, I need to learn about it. I'll give you a couple of contemporary examples. Right now, CONDOT has started working on the Lockwood Matthews Mansion. One of the commitments in the program is to invest in the historic fencing, and so an advisory committee exists. David Westmoreland's on it, Susan Schweitzer's on it, I'm on it, representing the city, CONDOT, their consultants, and so on. So as part of a meeting that just occurred, this is just ramping up, my task was to coordinate with all the city agencies to determine what their role in reviewing or regulating the improvements that are proposed. It's a $2.5 million project, and it's very exciting based on my visit to Lockwood Matthews for the first time in 30 years. Also, David Westmoreland, let me correct that, is a member of the committee, and his historical expertise is critical. I'm just helping to navigate the city requirements to make sure everybody is apprised, and that the Walk Bridge program, their consultants, are aware of interests, concerns, regulations, and to do what we're trying to do with everything Walk Bridge related. Try to make it move as quickly as possible. Everybody agrees we'd like to get as many improvements undertaken by the state as possible. If we can't avoid negative impacts, we are looking for ways to mitigate them and to advance enhancements. And the Lockwood Matthews Mansion is one of the enhancements. You're all familiar with the Maritime Aquarium and the functional replacements. That is ultimately a benefit to the city because of the new IMAX facility and 3 of the animal exhibits. We also have from CONDOT a commitment, I think, maybe it's too strong a word, but at 3 recent public information sessions with the Walk Bridge, Condon and Consultants. They seem to reaffirm that they'll be doing the Harbor Loop Trail part of the Norwalk River Valley Trail on the west bank, and also the wharf area. The Harbor Loop Trail on the east bank was already shown in all plans, and so those two critical elements complete the gaps in the Norwalk River Valley Trail system. Also, the city has requested, and they've agreed, that the city will retain the temporary Seaport Association vessel dock. The docks have to be relocated as part of the removal of the IMAX and the walk bridge. The permanent docks will go to the current location, so there's one dock further south, closer to Straffolino, that will be available to the city, and its uses will be determined as we go forward, as the designs continue. In this case, in working on the wharf and Harbor Loop Trails, Norwalk River Valley Trail Association people have been involved, redevelopment's been involved, Parks and Recreation.
Mr. Hempstead, further questions?
Yes.
Yes, well, I was not questioning her ability to communicate, ability to make meetings and all that. Mine has to do with the lack of specificities in this contract for deliverables. There's nothing truly spelled out in here what the expectations should be from the city itself. There's directives. Directives seem to come from arbitrarily from one source, I guess, because there's no requirements except for as directed, do this, do that, do this, do that, go to this, go to that. I mean, this is a contract for 20 hours a week at $2,000 a week. It's not like a light contract. I'm more about what's missing in here versus what's in here. All right. And another question I have, and I don't know who's going to answer this, is that the contract, the way I came out committee, seems a little open-ended because it's just a matter of the parties sign for an extension of the contract. We had a discussion about that it doesn't have to come back to the council the way this is written. I'm assuming, and I'm not being negative, it's the mayor who's signing this contract, because we're authorizing him to, and Ms. Prosy Johnson is the other person. And that contract can be just extended by that. Usually these things come back to the council for authorization. It's my concern. I think it was worthy of going back and getting a little bit more meat into this, no pun intended, into this. I'm not questioning. It was very educated the other evening when he made a presentation, gave a report. It's at a year end. It's taken us a year to kind of get something all assimilated and together and then delivered to us. But I'd like to see more quarterly reports to us, and maybe an obligation in this that you have to at least meet with one of the commissions that are involved anywhere in this process that will certainly be affected by what is going on, and there's no requirement. So I think this, I'm not going to make a motion to take, well, I don't want to table it. I'd like to send it back to the committee for a little bit more work on the contract. So,
Mr. Livingston and Mr. Neri.
Item on the table.
Yeah, first off, I wanted to note that I have spoken to Ms. Prosy, and she has agreed to make a presentation to the full council at some point that we decide as a group that we'd like to have. And to that point, I'd like to solicit input as to what topics we'd like to cover. And she has agreed to come give the whole council a full presentation, although we did just get a little bit of one. But moving forward, we'll get a more fuller report. I just want to comment on a couple of things Mr. Hempstead said. I mean, this has been in place for a year. We approved this a year ago. From all accounts, it's been working. We have to the extent it doesn't work, we have a 30-day termination provision, so we can terminate it at any time. One point I did also want to cover, which was also raised by Mr. Romano and others, is the relationship with the Shellfish Commission and the Harbor Commission. I wonder if you could comment on your relationship with them and how you interact with them on a day-to-day basis.
I generally don't interact with them on a day-to-day basis. I have I've been invited to or voluntarily participated in a number of meetings. I've invited them to at least one meeting, which was CONDOT met with the Army Corps of Engineers and also the Coast Guard on water-related matters. So I made sure that they participated in that meeting, which was an oversight on CONDOT's part, I believe, I hope. I coordinate with Frank Strauch to get information about meetings. Also, Dr. Pinto has reached out to me from time to time. I've responded to correspondence. I think going forward, since water quality, preservation of the shellfish industry here is critical to the community, not just from environmental and business related to shellfish, but it's the overall vibrancy of the city, which is grew up on shellfishing industry. I try to attend meetings like the upcoming State of the Harbor, which is a Harbor Management Commission presentation on the 13th. I provide all comments received from the public through a variety of sources with CONDOT or Eversource, because Eversource also has a significant impact on water quality. I know from conversations with CONDOT when I was discussing what the protocols are for sampling, ongoing monitoring of significant concern, mitigation, and restoration. So I've also spoken with the conservation official so that she's apprised of everything that's going on. And I understand from CONDOT that when they come back to meet with the Shellfish and Harbor Management Commissions in January, that they will be providing additional information on the water quality protocols. That's not ready to be released right now, but they are working, CONDOT is working with Harbor Watch. I understand that Dr. Pinto is working with Harbor Watch and with CONDOT also. And so I think that's a good marriage of the experts, as well as Alexis Chichera. I mispronounced her name, but you know Alexis. And also I encourage Eversource to follow the regulatory requirements in terms of consultation with both Harbor Management Commission and the Shellfish Commission. And Harbor Management Commission is scheduling them on their docket, I think in January, but it might be pushed back because their agendas are kind of packed with everything. So that's just examples of what I'm trying to do to become educated and informed. And in a report that I provided to Corporation Counsel Coppola, when I provided a report that you got a couple months ago about public involvement, permitting, and environment, that's when I learned the regulatory framework for key permits regarding the environment, 2 through DEEP, 1 through the Army Corps of Engineers, and then the Connecticut Siting Council. So consultation is a requirement, and we know that CONDOT is doing it. Eversource is getting into the consultation at this point, and I think those are all positive steps.
Mr. Igneri, did you have it?
I was wondering if we can satisfy Mr. Hempstead by asking Mr. Capola to change under the contract number 2, services to be performed C, and just provide in there that in addition to her availability, in addition to her being available to meet with designated officers, employees, commissions, and officials of the city and the public from time to time as may be appropriate, and with other entities directed by the city with regard to the services performed hereunder, and will provide a quarterly written report to the DPW committee. Sure.
So you're making an amendment to the contract or proposing an
I'm
amendment?
proposing an amendment.
Well, I would say, Mr. Igneri, in addition to the language that's already there, provide quarterly written report to the DPW committee and other reports as requested by the council from time to time. Other reports and 10 meetings as requested by the council from time to time. I mean, I think I get the gist of it.
Yeah, just,
And then
does that think,
Yeah, because I was going to offer something pretty close to that. It was basically to produce to the city as a whole, its boards, commissions, and common council, a quarterly written report as to activities, results, actions related to the Walkbridge project. I was trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, if I can make a suggestion too, if you're going to have a presentation, I wouldn't do it at the time of your regularly scheduled meeting because you'll end up being here very late. And I would strongly urge you to get written reports first because their written reports are.
Get a written report.
Her written report
submitted.
is generally well written, and you know it's worthwhile to review that before you have a presentation. If she answers questions, I think she'll be able to answer a lot of the questions in the report. So that's a good plan.
I'd like to suggest that if there are specific issues to be addressed that come to your attention that haven't come to me or other city departments, to let me know, and I can arrange an ad hoc meeting to deal with that, because sometimes you don't want to wait till some future opportunity. You want to get the information and try to either avoid any problems or come up with creative solutions that work in the benefit of everybody involved. And it's my experience that CONDOT's been very amenable to doing that. And so have the city staff, who meet as needed to learn about items and make recommendations that are forwarded to CONDOT, and many times CONDOT participates in those ad hoc and problem-solving meetings.
Just a comment. I would suggest perhaps that if any of the council people have questions that come to them from any constituents during the course of the week, the month, that they direct them to Ms. King. Ms. King will then get the information from Ms. Prosy, or to a combination with Ms. Burns, Ms. King, Ms. Prosy, and provide that information. The quarterly report would be best in a written form to the DPW committee, who could then circulate it to the rest of the council and say the first quarterly report would be due on April 1st for the period January through March of 2019. And then quarterly thereafter on the first day of the month following the end of the quarter. Just a synopsis of any significant issues that have arisen since during that quarter. I don't know if everybody feels comfortable with that.
Is it okay to put that language in this contract?
Yes, that's what I think the amendments from Mr. Igneri would cover.
yeah. So,
I would just suggest we not get as specific as the dates. And we just make-
Yeah, why don't we I'll come up with the language. I think I have a very good idea of what you're looking for, and quite frankly, after working with Sue for a year, I have no doubt that she will be more than happy to provide you with whatever reports, attend any meetings. She spends an incredible amount of time, and she has not said no to any request for information, et cetera. So I think we'll be in good shape there as well.
Yeah. All right, but I think we need some officially on the record here tonight.
Yeah, I'll have the agreement revised. It's fine.
Mr. Capola will write that up and circulate it.
Amendment motion?
And your approval would be contingent upon the satisfactory report from Mr. Capola. Mr. Kites, do you have?
I
Mr. Corsello?
Yeah, just to highlight that. I think the contract has a little more specificity than it appears at first blush. There's a letter from Ms. Prosy dated November 30th of 2017, which is incorporated into the contract itself, which provides a good deal more detail than the paragraph, Mr. Hempstead.
I know, but that's a letter, of,
But it's part of the contract.
yeah, but it isn't, it's not on the signed part of the contract, that's what I'm saying. Take the contract, come on, you're an attorney, it's not the part that needs to be.
No, because I am an
Not,
attorney.
not listed as an
Incorporated
exhibit in the contract.
Well, we-
It's attached here to and incorporated herein as part of it, but
I will-
nonetheless, that's fine. I'll add the
But it's
language.
okay, I think, but there's still nothing in there about the.
Would the council,
requirement to at least give-
would the council be satisfied with quarterly reports
Yeah.
due on the first day of the month following the quarter or the first week after the first quarter?
I actually would prefer not have date, I'd like to have quarterly is fine, but I prefer not to have a specific date because you're just setting up issues. I mean, actually, if you're talking, for example, January 1st to March 31st, it gives us a day to do the report.
So why don't we say?
I'd say quarterly, just be.
Quarterly reports due on the 10th day of the month following the end of the quarter? I don't know.
Shall we not debate this and have our law?
Yeah.
Our council do that?
I would say language acceptable to Corporation Council. I'll take care of it. I'm well aware of what you're looking for,
So-
and
so we're
I'll make
amending-
sure it's done to
so-
everybody's satisfaction.
So we're amending 3 to read as stated here with language as amended by corporate counsel. Is that satisfactory to everyone? Not getting into the specific language?
That is, thank you, Mr.
So the first, if there's no further discussion, then the first vote would be on the amendment to the contract, item 7C3, as proposed by Mr. Igneri. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now, is there any further discussion on item 7C3? Mr. Hempstead.
You have to make, first, again, we need to make a correction on the time provisions. It's 2019. The agreement shall remain in effect for a period of 1 year through 2018. It says here it should be 2019.
What section is that?
Right?
you.
No, it says 3.
The time agreement shall remain in effect for a period of 1 year through, this is a new contract we're signing tonight, correct?
What section are you looking at?
Oh, I'm sorry, section, right below that. Time
2018.
provisions, Section 3,
Yeah,
It says in
2019, doesn't it?
this says 18.
Where?
No, it says
No, it says
19.
It's 19.
It's 18?
He's looking into the back.
Yours does say 18.
What are you looking at?
Oh, ours says 19.
Time provisions 3, Section 3, item A,
Looking at the contract.
He's looking.
it was in my backup.
Oh, you're looking at the backup.
Does it? Well,
in the agenda, it says 19.
What section are you referring to?
Item
What page?
3, time provisions.
Item A.
Agreement between, go to the second page.
That was just a summary,
This is an extension, I got it, but the way this is proceeding as if it's a new start date, so otherwise your contract being signed would be on the 14th be null and void, so I'm just saying.
Can I provide some clarification? I believe that the contract that is in your packet is her contract from last year, that what you're approving here is a
Yeah.
amendment to that contract, which hasn't been drafted yet. It will just be a Form 1 year, extension.
So, wait a minute, we're voting on something that hasn't been drafted yet?
It's the same as what is in the current packet. It's a 1-year extension of what's in the packet.
Just quite
Well,
often.
the contract was drafted, it was an extension. So now we've added an amendment.
I see.
Okay,
Quite
so
often,
we
it has
just
been the
amended
practice.
this is,
It has been the practice, it's been our practice to, for example, for a lease amendment, that you're approving the terms, and then we draft the amendment. Similarly here, you approve the terms, and we will provide, and then we'll take care of the amendment.
Okay.
We don't need to come back to the council for the amendment. I'm well aware of the additional language that we want that will be included in the amendment, and I will make sure council sees it.
so are we voting on this as being the contract extension?
With the amendment. With the amendment for the requirement of quarterly reports.
Correct. So I'm trying to correct what we're voting on tonight. It says 18.
No.
That was, the contract was signed in 18.
I got it, but we're supposed to be
the
voting
actual-
on
the actual
extending this
motion-
contract, are we not?
The actual motion is to amend it to
Mario?
2019.
Yeah.
The,
You get it?
what's before
Mr.
you,
Coppola.
what's before you is to approve an amendment to the contract to provide for an extension of the term for 1 year. All other terms of the contract will remain the same, or the agreement will remain the same, except for the additional language that has been proposed by Chairman Igneri this evening, which I will, later this evening, before I leave City Hall, take care of drafting, so I make sure it's done.
Not a-
Mr. Hempstead, are you, yes?
Let it go.
Yes?
No, I just have one, well, I'd like one more, would like to put one more amendment on the board here. That extension will be effective upon the parties jointly signing an amendment to this agreement as approved by the Common Council.
Excuse me, could you please repeat the language you're suggesting?
Sure, it's in there. The extension will be effective upon the parties jointly signing the amendment to this agreement with approval by the Common Council.
But let's be clear, the approval is being provided this evening. Are you suggesting that this come back for a second approval?
No.
Okay.
Under the time provisions, which is what I brought up, it just takes two parties to extend the contract up to another 3 years. That's what it says.
However, the mayor is acting on behalf of the city, and the mayor needs to have approval by the council to do so. The mayor doesn't have authority to execute.
But this says he does.
Well, it doesn't say, the agreement doesn't say that the
Extension
mayor
will be
has
effective
unilateral
upon the
authority.
parties jointly signing an amendment to the agreement.
Understood, but the presumption there is the mayor doesn't have the unilateral authority to execute an agreement on behalf of the city for a contract, for a personnel contract without approval from the council.
So what you're saying is that there's a 2-year extension of the contract automatic after 19.
You could agree, and
So you would rather have it come back to the council?
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Just simple formality.
So you're making
Yes.
a recommendation that instead of 2 one-year renewals subject to budget availability and written authorization of the Director of Public Works, you should say budget availability and approval of the council.
That is correct.
That's on the resolution, right?
That's on the, that's the motion. That's the item on in the contract. So you want to make that amendment to the
Yes, I do.
language?
So I was getting confused. I thought you were referring to the language in the contract. That's why I was getting confused. I didn't realize you were reading for the
So
resolution.
Mr. Hempstead is further amending the language to state that, you want to read it? You do it.
Well, I'm reading a different part than I guess other people are reading in this contract, even though this is one that was presented.
You're amending the resolution, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm amending the contract.
Excuse me, you're amending
But
the.
it says an agreement. That is, okay,
Excuse
hold on.
me.
I'll go back to the.
Mr. Hempstead, can I make
What-
some clarification?
One at a time. Mr. Hempstead.
Wherever appropriate, I'd like to see inserted that any further extension of the contract beyond the 1 year that we're voting on tonight requires Common Council approval.
Right.
There we go. I will leave it up to the esteemed attorney here to insert it in the proper location.
Thank you.
If that's the amendment that you are requesting, then I would just delete the reference to the 2 one-year renewals. That would be the cleanest.
No.
Because it's coming back to the council anyway.
That complicates
You're gonna let
things. I think that complicates.
Right, so-
Either way, it's coming back,
So
whether,
the amendment made by Mr. Hempstead would say, subject to budget availability and approval, and where it says, and written authorization, that'll be scratched out, and approval of the Common Council.
Correct.
Well, excuse me, I don't mean to overreact. Let's take out with 2 one-year renewals and in the language, so.
The council said no. They just said no.
We didn't
We're
vote
good.
no, but-
Well, I think if you leave the language in about 2 one-year renewals,
Because it's an option.
it's an option, but it's got,
Why don't you just make it renewal subject to
yeah, renewals, how about renewals subject to Common
what the
Council
mayor
approval?
said? What the mayor said. Budget availability and approval of the Common Council.
Okay,
All right?
you understand.
Okay, hold on.
So are we clear? We have 2 amendments to this approval of the extension of the contract. The first one was the fact that the council, will receive quarterly reports from Ms. Prosy detailing substantive issues that have taken place in that quarter. The second amendment, as proposed by Mr. Hempstead, instead of saying that this is subject to the approval of, I gotta find it myself, with budget availability and approval of the Common Council. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I think what we talked about first was quarterly reports and such other reports as the council might request.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So quarterly reports and other information which the council might request. And then, subject to budget availability and approval of the Common Council for the 2 one-year extensions.
All right.
Any further, well, let's vote on that issue first. Mr. Hempstead's amendment, we already voted on Mr. Igneri's amendment. Let's vote on Mr. Hempstead's amendment about, instead of written authorization of the Director of Public Works, it would be subject to the approval of the council for the 2 one-year extensions. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed.
Council having approval, I'm opposed to giving Mr. Capola extra work. It is not necessary. It's subject to council approval.
Okay. All right, and, well, that wouldn't be extra, that'll just be in the motion. So, any abstentions from that motion? Seeing none, there was 14-1 in favor. Mr. Corsello voted no. That motion passed. Now, let's return to item 7C3. I think that's the one, right? And any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
I'm going to leave some Walkbridge information here if you'd like to pick it up.
Okay.
DPW committee members picked this up last
I got
week.
one more thing to do.
But it's available for the public.
Next item, Ms. Smith, item 7D1.
Yes, I'd like to move the approval of and vote on Chief of Economic and Community Development candidate Jessica Casey and speak to that, if I may.
Ms. Smith has moved the item 7D1, and you have the floor.
Yes, there's a lot of excitement right between this contract. I can't find the resume. Where did it go? There we go. There's a lot of excitement about Jessica. The hiring committee was extremely impressed, as Mr. Brescia so eloquently expressed. And Ms. Casey, I had the opportunity to meet with her tonight. Her resume is extremely impressive, beyond impressive. She has experience with Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, both as Deputy Chief Operating Officer and Chief Officer of Operations Policy and Oversight. She has a great deal of experience that our city needs right now. She seems to have a lot of vision, and she wants to coordinate our departments together in terms of a vision and in terms of, perhaps bringing grants to the city. And I think that she's got a lot of energy and great vision for the city. So I hope that you will vote for her.
Mr. Livingston.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to second Ms. Smith's comments. I had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Casey myself, and I have to tell you, she's incredibly impressive. I think we're incredibly fortunate to get someone of this caliber to come take this position. As Ms. Smith noted, she's Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. I want to note a couple other things that just really sort of sum up her experience. Aside from her master's in urban regional policy, she worked at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and I just want to cite what she did there. She worked on a program that works with 35 of the largest U.S. cities to identify and advance best practices in economic development, transportation, financing, and other local government services, which is exactly what we're looking for. And I think, as I said, I think we're extremely fortunate to have her, and I think she can move to Norwalk, which is an added plus, and I just really highly recommend it.
Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Those who know me, I'm about process. Underneath the way we pass this ordinance, our role in this is a legislative body, the mayor appoints, and that we're supposed to either affirm or deny. This should have gone to committee. This is a key position in the city. It should have had a light of day and discussion about this particular individual. I do have a question that's not even provided with information. What is the salary that we're hiring this person at? Those are the kind of issues that come up in committee. Can somebody tell me?
Mr. Bernie?
Ms. Casey was offered an annual salary of $155,000 a year, and she accepted it.
Thank you. So where this should have had some discussion, and maybe we had some information about other candidates that applied for it, since some members were not member of interviews, et cetera, et cetera. It's nothing talking about the credentials. When you look at what we're seeking for and what's before us, certainly tend to match. About the fact that there were no other opinions being asked for at a committee meeting. That is the purpose of our committees, to do that kind of work at committee level. This was rushed to the floor because the first I heard about that this candidate was last week. I graciously, I was invited to come like a meet and greet with about 2 days notice on a midday schedule. It doesn't necessarily work. So with that, I will be opposing this because the fact this should have gone to committee, should have had a fair discussion, and it just isn't, and I know it's going to pass 14-1.
It just, in all due respect, the process has been the same for many, many years, where there is a committee put together to interview potential candidates, look at resumes, and make a recommendation to the mayor, and the mayor makes a recommendation to the council. So this process was followed as all other processes have been followed since I've been mayor and since I've been working in the city, working with other council members. So that's with all due respect. So further discussion? I'd like to invite Ms. Casey, if you'd like to come down. She's here. And would be able to answer any questions that the council members might have of her. And if you can give us a very brief you have a very long and storied background and a lot of experience. If you give us just a brief overview of your thoughts in regards to this position. I will say that when I met Ms. Casey, she indicated that she was looking to relocate, and she was looking to relocate, and the first choice that she had picked was Norwalk. And when she started looking around in Norwalk, a community that she felt she would fit into very nicely and that she truly looked forward to moving to, she found this opportunity on the website and believed that it was perhaps meant to be. So, Ms. Casey.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Wanted to attend this evening's council meeting to be able to speak with you all. I'm very appreciative and of the opportunity, and I really look forward to working with everyone if voted and approved. My current experience is with the MBTA in Boston, Massachusetts, where I work as the Chief of Operations Policy and Oversight. There I have 5 very specific responsibilities. I work with a team of approximately 45 people to be able to fulfill those responsibilities. It includes service planning and scheduling, includes all bus diversions for temporary shuttle service. It also includes all local, state, and federal communications with elected officials. I'm working to implement software with a team of payroll, finance, comptroller's office, ITD, and all of the rest of the departments that are in state government. But I think that from a transportation operations background over the last 2 years, it's given me a real skill set in being able to get things done in a collaborative way, in a way that really includes all voices at the table. When I worked at the Harvard Kennedy School for 2 years, I worked with 35 of the largest cities, the chief of staff to the mayor's offices, to be able to help cities implement best practices. When a city was struggling with something, they came to our program to be able to learn what cities were doing. But it wasn't really, it was the education piece, but beyond the education piece, it was really the facilitation and helping those cities really gain the skills and the expertise that they needed to be able to implement. I think when the mayor's correct, My partner and I, we were looking at different communities to be able to settle in, specifically Connecticut. We came across Norwalk. We absolutely loved it. As the mayor said, I was looking at the website and saw the job description, and it really is exciting to me to be able to see Norwalk moving in this direction. But even more exciting is the fact that I may be able to help all of you be able to get where we need to go. I'm very passionate about what I do. It really is about collaboration. I feel as though everybody at the table needs to be moving in the same direction. And I'm eager to be able to help the city do that. I know that there are different departments that will report up to this particular position. I know that those departments have been in place for a long time, and I understand that they're doing a good job. And I think where this role fits in is being able to help everybody get on the same page, move in the same direction, understand how different leaders across the city can really work together to be able to get to the next step. So with that, I will leave it, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Any questions for Ms. Casey? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstentions? Let the record show that there were 12 in favor, 3 opposed. Welcome aboard.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
There, before we have the final motion, I want to thank the council for this year of service. I want to wish everybody, Mr. Sims? Yeah.
Before we adjourn, I also want to address council as well as my constituents for this amazing opportunity for the past nearly decade of serving the city. It has been a tremendous experience, humbling, and I'm just ever thankful that I have a second opportunity to also represent them as well up in Hartford. So I look forward to continuing to service the residents of Norwalk in the 140th District, and I wish the city well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. And I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season. I know we just finished the season of Hanukkah, so Ms. Siegelbaum and Mr. Corsello. So again, and I wish everybody a prosperous, happy, healthy 2019. Now, a motion?
Motion adjourned.
Mr. Igneri, a motion to adjourn. All in favor? We're adjourned.